God.
Don't say I didn't warn you. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily.
God.
Down the stream.
This is hell. This is a nightmare.
This is my nightmare.
Come on. I was trying to comprehend the meaning of the words.
Right, we are starting here on Live Long and Podcast for Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. It is over. It has been since 1989, but we're just getting started here on Live Long and Podcast. I'm Dave Mater, coming at you with Star Trek TV and movie reviews, joined here by my wife, Jane. Let's bring in our panel for today. Starting first, we got my brother, Jeff Mater. Welcome. How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm good.
He's coming in.
Podcast.
Coming in next, we got the ever salty Jody Simpson. As he comes in.
That took a while. All right. Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
And then the ever incredulous Kevin Millard coming to you.
Ever courageous.
Woo, we're all here now, aren't we? And we can even turn on our logos and things again. Oh, how fun this is. Okay, everybody. So
That's the word for it. Fun.
we are here streaming live on our Facebook page at Live Long and Podcast. You may also be watching us on our YouTube channel or listening to us on the audio version. Welcome to all of you, present and future. Since Star Trek Picard's finished, we're in a bit of a holding pattern till Star Trek Discovery Season 3 comes, which get excited for that. We are covering the Star Trek movie series, and we've been making our way through the films. We are now here on Star Trek V. What a roller coaster it's been, Jane.
Oh yeah, ups and downs.
Ups and downs, and maybe this was a bit of a down. We're gonna see. We're gonna see how the group felt about the movie. I feel pretty good about it. Let's see. I think they're gonna think the same. Okay, so let's talk about that. We've introduced our panel, and hey, let's just start overall. I always want to hear from Jane first. Jane, how do you feel about this movie after it has you've rewatched it? I don't know how long it's been since you've seen it.
Well, you know what? I'm surprised. I have rewatched the movies, but I think I've skipped this one on the last few rewatches. So I was pretty surprised how much I didn't remember. And sorry, Jody, it wasn't as bad as I had remembered.
I feel the same.
I kind of enjoyed it today. Yeah.
I don't know if I went so far as to enjoy it, but
the ending sucks. The ending kills it. But up until God, I was okay with it. Like, yeah.
Okay, let's go over to Jeff next. Jeff, you maybe had only seen this movie once before, maybe. I don't know how many times you've seen it, but
I think I've seen it twice before this.
it had been. You had mentioned it had been a moment since you had seen it last.
Yeah, I have not watched it in a while because I avoid it. Because I know why I avoid it. Because it's the best part of the movie is the credits. There's not much to like in this movie. Like, I don't know where you got, like, it's boring, especially the first 40 minutes of the movie are just tough to even get through. Like, it starts off with this homeless bald guy in a desert, and what's it?
you have seen the first Star Trek movie, right?
Oh,
He watched it with us. Remember?
I feel like
Oh,
this
yeah.
one's worse.
It was a podcast and everything.
I would put this one worse than Motion Picture.
No, come on. That is a harsh sentence. But you know what? Let's go over to Kevin Millard. I don't think he's going to say this is worse than Star Trek the Motion Picture.
He might.
This movie is worse than I ever thought it was before. It's so boring. Everything is wrong about this movie. Everything. The only part I liked is when Spock, when he's climbing the mountain and Spock comes up there to just tell him he sucks at climbing mountains. That's the only thing I liked about it. The rest of this movie is awful. It's just boring.
The stunt where the
Nothing
guy
happens.
falls, that was pretty cool. Nothing happens and nothing matters. And God apparently could shoot electricity out of his eyeballs, and it just leaves like a stain.
Well, it's not really God, okay? But we're not there yet. We're going to get to it. Jody, over to you. Jody, so you kind of said already, hey, maybe not as bad as you remembered it being.
Yep.
You were kind of on the same wavelength as Jane.
Yeah.
Expand upon that. Maybe what your thoughts are.
I am completely with Jane on this. This movie is not. I remember this movie being absolutely god awful, and watching it again now. Don't get me wrong; it's still pretty bad.
It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not a good movie
Not a
by
good-
any stretch of the imagination. Does it deserve to be the worst of the original Star Trek movies? No. One still kills this movie when it comes to actual
Would you
good
how
movie.
how do you rate it compared to like Star Trek 3, which I know is not a movie you're a fan of?
I think Star Trek 3 was better than this movie. I used to think that 5 was the worst movie out of the original series movies, the 6 of them. I'm now this podcast has changed me. This is now the second worst movie.
Hey, then we've accomplished something together here.
Yes.
So that's
And I'm not a fan of 3 either. I think 3
think
was
it's
pretty
worse.
terrible
I'm even
too.
wondering if Insurrection is going to be worse than this. Now that I'm remembering
No.
Insurrection, so we'll see.
We'll
But
see.
anyway,
We'll see how
we'll
we feel about
We'll
it.
see.
I haven't seen it in ages, but still.
I'd rather watch Insurrection than this movie any day.
Yeah.
I mean,
And before we jump into like a play-by-play of the movie, I'll just give you sort of my high-level thoughts. Like, I'm kind of on the same wavelength with Jody and Jane on this, where I'm like, it's better than I sort of remembered it. Even having watched the other 4 that came before it in sort of succession leading up to this, it's wildly forgettable. I think that there's not a lot of great moments or dialogue in it, but I think that
There's a couple things, but
I don't, and I'm glad. The main thing I was left leaving this movie feeling was I'm glad that this wasn't the final Kirk Enterprise adventure.
if they ended it on this, that would have been just such a sour taste.
Because those of us who are, maybe Jeff wouldn't remember. He's probably, but they were releasing VHS box sets of these 5 movies. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah,
right.
I still have the original 5 box set.
Yeah, because this
Before
was
Undiscovered Country
it was
came out.
called The Final Frontier. It was
supposed to be the last one.
And just think about how the movie ends.
But I look at it this way: if it wasn't for this movie and how terrible it was, they probably wouldn't have made the next one to finish it off. So we got Undiscovered Country because of this.
I think you're right. I think we did get because I think that it's not a satisfying ending, and then we got one more movie, and it ended up being arguably the best of them all. So I think that there's something to be learned here in terms of like franchise fatigue. Because sometimes like they'll come out with like a new franchise, a new movie for something. I don't know what it is, right? Like it'll be
what 8 years between 5 and 6?
It's more like 3.
Between 5 and 6.
Depends if you're talking in the universe or you're talking in real life.
No, I'm talking like actual release of the movies.
This is 89, and I think that Star Trek 6 is 91 or 92.
Is it? Oh, okay. I thought it was longer. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah,
91.
I think so.
So yeah, they're 2 years apart. But in the movie, in the story, in like the story of Star Trek,
it's different.
There's 6 years between this movie and Star Trek 6.
Yeah.
There's a big.
Doesn't come out till 1994, so that's 3 years after 6.
Yes.
Well, so.
Right. So they made a movie roughly every 2 to 3 years, and that kind of kept going until Nemesis.
Nemesis killed it.
Nemesis and Enterprise, they were the ones who destroyed Star Trek.
But let's be honest, they wouldn't have made a movie out of DS9.
Right.
Wouldn't have happened.
Would have been a good movie though.
Why wouldn't it?
I don't know.
Why not, Jody?
Because DS9
It's a different audience.
and DS9 it buttons itself up. Like there's no room for a continuation.
Yeah, there's nothing you can really do with it.
Yeah. It's a complete story from beginning.
But
to
it
end.
would have if they were going to do when was Nemesis? Nemesis was 2003?
Yeah, 2003.
2003. So when did DS9 finish?
2002.
1999.
99? Okay. So yeah, no, they couldn't have done it then.
Nemesis is 2002.
Is it 2002? All right.
Yeah.
I thought it was 3, but anyway.
I remember. Yeah, it was around the same time Eamon was born. I remember going to see it.
9/11 happened and then Nemesis. Coincidence?
Notice how none of us want to talk about this movie.
No,
Let's
we're
talk
actually
about-
talking about everything else but
Let's
this movie.
talk about this movie. You're right,
might
Kevin.
as
We
well.
need to get into it.
No, I was fine not talking about it, but
I always like.
That's my argument for this movie is that's why it's the worst movie because it's utterly forgettable.
Yeah.
You don't care what happens throughout the whole movie or at the end. Nothing has stakes. I'll watch one. It has more stakes than this movie.
the worst thing they did
I don't know about
in
that.
this
but,
movie was what they did to Scotty.
yeah.
Scotty is the Jar Jar Binks of this movie.
Oh yeah,
He's
where he hits his
like
head
a-
on the pipe
He's
and all
the,
that.
he is
Yeah.
the comic relief of this movie. He has
And
his
it's-
moments.
No, because but he's not. No, it's not good. None of it is good.
When he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
He
I think
tried
the
to
ship
make
was
him funny.
built by monkeys," or when he says that, "Oh, have you never seen a jailbreak before? What are you standing
Yeah,
around
it's
for?"
ridiculous.
And then he hits his head on the
ridiculous.
What
thing.
are you standing around for? Have you never seen a jailbreak before?
I like that. It's a good Scottish.
Stand back.
Thank you, my bad.
Yeah,
Could've been
okay.
better.
We can talk about the movie. Hey, I'm here
Might as
for it.
well.
I'm
That's
here.
kinda what
We
this is
watched
about.
it. We might as well talk about it, everybody.
We're already here.
Yeah. What stuck out to me with this one was that this had like a cold open, right? Like this had like an opening sequence. It didn't go straight to credits. Like I think all the movies before this did. There was
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
right. So we got like the
It
scene.
still had a
on-
long ass credit scene, but
Yeah.
Yes, and Goldsmith is back, but we'll get to that. This opening scene is on Nimbus 3, the world of galactic peace, which is just kind of a wasteland. And it starts with this man digging holes in the ground that Jeff alluded to, the bald homeless man living in the desert. He's got a home. It's just not a very nice home.
how do you know he's homeless?
Yeah, he seemed like he had a home.
He
He
had
looks
that.
like a meth addict, guys. I mean, like, like, what are we talking about here? Like, why?
Well, that's
why
his pain.
Is this the opening
He looked
scene?
like he had already been medicating his pain for quite some time.
Yes, and like this is the opening scene of the movie. Like, does it hook you? No. Does it even try? It's not good. Nothing about this opening scene is.
Let me ask you:
Yeah.
have you been hooked on any of the 3.5 long minute credit scenes on any of the other previous movies?
I just skip it. I don't care about the credits.
Well, I think that
Well, then
the
you
big
can skip
moment-
this too, because it really doesn't happen. Doesn't matter anyway.
The whole thing with this
so it's not
opening
part of the movie?
sequence.
Okay, all right. So then I can't skip it. Okay.
No, you
Why
can't
not?
skip. We have to get through it. It's only this movie's only an hour and 40 minutes long. It's not even that long.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I know.
Felt
It seems
longer.
longer.
It seems longer. Way
It
longer.
does seem longer.
It's not
Yeah.
very
Mind
long.
you, I also thought that the first movie was like 3.5 hours long.
Yeah, I thought that too. But it's not.
Bigger. Well, fuck off. Anyway. Sorry.
Yeah. But this whole opening sequence, like, I don't know, like you can talk about the guy who plays Cybok. I think his name's Lawrence Luckinbill. Does this performance that he gives here, like in this opening few minutes of the movie, bring you in? I think the consensus was kind of no. But when
Actually,
you watch it the first time,
I actually kind of
He's not
like
bad.
Cybok.
I do.
I just hate the rest of the movie. And I think they could have done something really cool with an emotional Vulcan, but they didn't. They did this pile of shit.
right? Because we see here he shows up, he helps this guy, he's got his pain, whatever. That's a big narrative, and then he takes off his hood, and it's like, ha, he's a Vulcan, and he goes, ha 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 ha. ha.
Yeah, and then that maniacal laughing scene that's just ridiculous.
Right, and then we get the score, like dun, dun, dun,
That was
dun,
ridiculous.
and then we get the it's not a super long credit sequence,
No.
but it's not short either. But it's back to the Jerry Goldsmith score from the first movie, which is also the theme for the Next Generation, which coincidentally was being made around at the same time and apparently next door to each other. They were making this movie right next.
They were sharing sets, pal. If you happen
A lot of
if you look
sets.
at
Oh, yeah.
if you look at
Yeah.
some of those hallways, see
Some of the hallways, I
those
noticed
are
that.
those are shared for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. My only question with the credits is why does George Takei get an and credit? He gets an and George Takei in these credits.
Because he's only in it for a little tiny bit.
No, but the and is usually reserved for somebody who brings a special performance to the movie, someone who's like, this is a big name, someone who's important. George Takei, in these first 5 movies, has very little to do. Okay? It's not until Star Trek 6 that he finally
Yeah, but
starts.
he's got a cape.
He's got a cape,
He had a
yeah.
cape in 2 movies.
But
Yeah, he got a cape.
my
They
point-
probably give him the end because of the cape.
My note
Yeah.
with that whole thing was that I just think that George Takei he always talks about how big of an egomaniac that Shatner is, and that all those things, and he hates Shatner for these reasons. But George Takei is just as pompous, just as arrogant, full of himself as Shatner is, and it's probably why they don't get along.
I don't know if
But-
I'd agree with that, but anyway.
George Takei did say on this movie that even though he had his personal differences with William Shatner, he actually enjoyed being directed by him.
Oh yeah, so this is like their best collaboration.
Yeah, and what does Sulu really do?
Oh, speaking of which, the fact that Shatner wrote and directed this movie, just some
It shows.
This is show because I think this
he
was
wrote
his-
it too.
Oh yeah,
co-wrote
Co-wrote
it.
it.
Co-wrote
co-wrote
it.
it.
He wrote it with Harv Bennett and another guy.
And Harv Bennett told him that this story wouldn't be satisfying because you're leaving this question of like, is God real? Is it not? And you're leaving it open ended, so it's not going to be satisfying to anybody. But
in a way, that's good.
What
Though.
he thinks the problem with this movie is.
I think that he thought that was the big problem with the story.
No, that's
just on its.
I think the royalty-free music being sung in this movie is probably the worst part of it.
We'll get to that. Okay, so after the credits, we get the it's Captain Kirk is climbing a mountain, and it's El Capitan in Yosemite.
It's somebody that's supposed to look like Kirk.
Guys. In case you don't know where Yosemite National Park is, it's on Earth. Okay,
yes, yeah,
so
we all gathered that.
And he's climbing this.
But this stunt double looks nothing like Shatner.
No, but I will say that it is the only thing about the movie that I actually enjoy is the nature shots and the beauty of the nature, because the cinematography is actually not.
They did a really good job on that. Yeah, I'll agree with you on that.
But
It's
overall,
so boring though, because there's you go from
it's 3.5 minutes of supposedly Shatner climbing.
Yeah, you've got like 3 minutes of credits, and then you've got 12 minutes of fucking William Shatner climbing a rock. William Shatner.
Supposedly.
you know what
He's a big movie star, guys. He can't be doing dangerous.
I understand that, but at least get somebody with a little bit of a pudge on you.
Yeah.
Like the guy that was climbing was clearly like super buff and like there wasn't an ounce of fat on him.
Can't climb. Pudgy guys can't climb. There is no pudgy climber out there, is there?
What's that?
There's no pudgy climbers out there. They couldn't find one.
Why not?
It'd be
You're
hard
telling
to
me I
climb
can't
with-
climb a mountain?
Just put a fake gut on him.
I probably can't, but in theory,
we could take a bet. I'd be willing
I'm
to
sure there is
bet.
pudgy climbers. Or at least
Okay.
somebody that has that type of frame.
Or they
Like
could
the
have put
frame wasn't even right
pillow.
on it.
a pillow under his
Like
shirt.
the guy that's clearly climbing is like this skinny little dude. Like he's skinny guy and he's like fitting in all these little cracks and shit. And Shatter's like, there's no way. Shatter's leg couldn't fit into half of those things.
Okay, but that aside,
and I'm a fat guy.
Let's
so,
suspend disbelief here, and let's believe that it's Captain
fine.
Kirk climbing a mountain.
Yeah, sure was.
You know, and I don't know, like this whole scene is. I think. Well, you see that McCoy's down on the planet having a cow because he's worried about.
Because that's all he does.
That's all he does. All he does is worry. He's a wet blanket, McCoy, and he
A
just
Debbie Downer.
He's still one of the better characters.
he practices very little medicine, from what I could tell, especially in this movie. He has very little to do from a medical standpoint. And so he's mostly there just to kind of like grumble and complain and worry about things. But you know, that's his character.
About McCoy.
And as Kirk climbs the mountain, Spock shows up in the rocket boots, which I thought this was really cool when I first saw this as a kid.
Absolutely. It's an awesome shot. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I want those boots.
Yeah, who doesn't want those boots? He's like,
Yeah.
hello, Captain. I've been following you.
Well, they only set up these boots so that way they could do the scene later in the turbo shaft or whatever.
It's so
I like this scene though because the only reason that Spock is there is to tell Kirk, "You suck at climbing this mountain."
Yeah, you're.
And
I don't see him fucking doing it though.
Yeah.
he also doesn't understand why he's being so dangerous, right? Like he's
Because he's Kirk and he doesn't care.
Kirk's like, because it's there, the mountain's meant to be climbed, and
Mhm.
but Spock does throw shade at him and say that you are in no record of breaking the record.
Yeah, I think that's his real reason for being there.
just to like, yeah, come on, why are you doing this?
Like you talk about McCoy being Debbie Downer, it's actually Spock.
Yeah.
Spock's a dick.
But does Spock is ultimately responsible for him falling, isn't he?
Oh yeah, because he distracted
He
him.
distracts him.
Yeah.
Distracts him, he loses his
Yeah.
grip, he falls, but he also saves his life just at the last minute.
Well, you kind of have to after you caused it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
Come on.
everybody laughed at the special effects when he actually
No, yeah.
and turns and goes down like he's diving off a diving
We're talking
board.
late '80s here. This isn't
Yeah.
the worst. The effects in the first one are way worse.
Wait,
Mhm. And then they get to their camp out. They're Kirk talks about knowing he wouldn't die because he knows he'll die alone, which he doesn't die alone. He actually dies with Picard, doesn't he?
but he does sort of die alone because he doesn't have anybody he knows, his friends, his
Well, he's in a different century.
Just
at that point, right?
this dick who's been yelling at him in the Nexus for 20 minutes
Well,
to
he
come
is
and help him.
kind of alone.
Well, and you also have to remember though, the Nexus is also something that was caused. So he could have ended up being the guy who dies alone in the cabin somewhere, right?
Yeah, but to him,
So-
I think he died on the ship at the beginning of Generations. That's when he really.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
is a lot of kind of well, and actually, there's a fan theory that he's never actually alive in the entire movie.
Oh.
That he's actually a
An
figment
echo?
of. No, he's like yeah, kind of like an echo, but more like a figment of Picard's
So that
imagination.
he actually did die on the Enterprise B, and that was the end of.
That's one of the fan theories. Yeah,
Okay, and
Clearly
so
the movie
in that
doesn't
case, he did die
know
alone.
that, but
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I think. That's where he died.
Yeah, so they set this whole up, but they're having their camp out, they're having their beans, they're having their secret ingredient, which is the bourbon. Spock brought marshmallows. He loves camping, doesn't he?
Mhm.
And then they want their.
I like this scene except for two things. Of course, the row your boat,
Mhm.
and two, he calls it a marshmelon. They
yeah,
all call it marshmelons. I've never
Yeah.
heard that anywhere else.
I thought they were just like saying that because like Spock got it wrong, but then I was like, no, they're actually just
say I
calling
didn't
them
warn you.
marshmallows.
Marshmelons. Yeah.
Row your
do
boat
not play
gently
that.
down the stream. Merrily, 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 lightly
Do not
down the
encourage him,
stream.
Jane.
But I like
Merrily, merrily,
McCoy starts to get like a little drunk and a little surly. It's awesome.
Yeah, he was drunk. Sure.
I like to call it Super McCoy, but anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I didn't take quick. How did he get the marshmallow? What did it come out of? Was that just a package?
A marshmallow maker.
A marshmallow maker.
It looks like
Maybe maybe
replicator
marshmallows
tea.
come out of like some sort of pore on Spock. Who knows?
I don't know.
Okay, so this whole like camping sequence.
Marshmallow.
I don't know. I think that it's good dialogue mostly, and I think that
Fine.
it kind of establishes that these three are best friends, and even though we already kind of know that, but kind of just centers us back. And then we
I
got
never
the
really get the impression that McCoy really is the best friend of any of them, though.
he's more Kirk's best friend. I find.
No, him and Spock are best friends.
Oh,
Really?
for sure. Yeah.
100%. Him and
So,
Spock.
so who's Kirk's best friend?
Nobody.
Kirk
Oh, maybe.
in his ego.
Right. So the next sequence is the Klingons. We get the Klingons, and they destroy Carl Sagan's probe that I guess had been released a few years earlier.
Those bastards.
Yeah, we see like that little drawing on the side of the probe that's like from Carl Sagan's stuff. Anyway, so these Klingons show up. Jane and I were watching it on the TV, and we couldn't read any of the subtitles. Not that I think we missed out on much, but if anybody else wants to break down these Klingon scenes, please go ahead.
It's not even worth it.
I didn't have subtitles either.
I just said
I
that
had them, but I don't really remember it.
I only kind of remember what they say. It doesn't matter.
they don't have honor because they're unforgettable. They're forgettable, and Kalis was unforgettable. And so it's at this point that when did we get the the Nimbus 3, the 3 ambassadors? We kind of didn't talk about that yet. So
Oh yeah.
Blah blah.
Yeah.
They show up. They get abducted. All right.
I got a
now.
question about that. He says it's the only place that has the three of you. That's why we're here. Why would you need three of them? You just need one of them. You need
preferably just a Federation person.
Yes. You don't need all three. Like, why does it have to be that planet?
It doesn't.
Because the story says
If he
so.
needs a ship, how the fuck did he get to Nimbus 3? Why didn't he just keep that ship?
Maybe he was already on Nimbus 3.
I think he needed a powerful ship, I guess.
His own ship.
Okay.
It's not like a bus. So wait, I don't understand. Why was this planet created as a peace planet, and why was it chosen? It seems like a shithole planet. And who chose this?
They said 20 years ago, their three governments got together and decided to create a world of galactic peace. This is where Jeff mentioned to me last night that this whole sequence, this bar that they live in the capital, feels like very Star Wars-esque.
Yeah.
Feels very Tatooine. We got like the weird seedy bar, the cat lady with the 3 boobs. And then even the Federation guy is like down and out. He's sweaty. He's like, this place sucks.
That should automatically make this movie better, by the way.
It's that guy is David Warner, who went on to play like the Cardassian in the 4 Lights episode and a few other things. Right. And then, but this is Cybok's plan, I guess. I don't know. So he captures these three. They're now hostages, and he wants a starship. This is what we're led to believe. And this kind of is what starts the whole plot into motion, because now the Enterprise is recalled. We get Scotty is, talking about how the ship was built by monkeys and it's all falling apart and the doors don't open and everything's kind of screwy. It's 6 months after they first got this ship.
Yeah, like Scotty's had it for 6 months and he's still bitching about it. It's like, why don't you do your fucking job,
Scotty's
Scotty?
not as good as we think.
Yeah, Scotty, do your
Maybe
fucking
not.
job and quit bitching.
Yeah, he's had this ship for 6 months. You can't get it
Yeah,
right. It's
fucking
brand new.
unbelievable.
It's brand
Jordan
new. It's
would
not.
have that shit fucking perfect.
Yeah, and so Uhura
Because
kind
it's
of.
EA and he doesn't like it.
What do you guys think of it? Like when Uhura called Sulu and Chekhov? Because we hadn't had really a scene with these two together in the movies that I could remember.
Well, I was just wondering, where's the GPS on Earth in the future? There's no GPS?
Well, why they couldn't beam them up?
Well, why they were lost, for one. They had communicators, but they didn't have GPS. And why they couldn't beam them up.
Well,
Yeah.
communicators, Jane, as we know, communicators aren't something that is they're not a very good technology. They break up all the time. They don't work.
Yes.
These are, and when the plot needs it, Jane, that's when they fail.
And no iPhone.
Yeah, well, they don't need phones.
May not work at all.
Yeah,
Well, we did find out that the Enterprise's transporters were malfunctioning.
but not
that
the
point.
transporters of the entire planet Earth, and not the
Yeah.
transporters of the space dock and every other ship that's around.
Yeah.
But whatever, it doesn't matter.
Well,
But
there's
they
only
didn't
ever
like,
one ship near
for us.
Earth. Remember that. There's only ever one ship near Earth.
yeah,
Enterprise.
which also
They
considered
never
capital,
park more than one near there.
or at least one with an experienced crew. But
Yeah.
they're all conscripted back. The vacation's canceled. Let's get going here. I just called the Chekhov and Sulu were always like kind of paired up more in the original series. But in this movie, they get a scene together. But that's kind of it. Like their dynamic is not revisited again.
No.
And
This movie missed an opportunity with the Cybok character to introduce the Romulans as more of a bad guy. Every movie with these Kirk, it's fucking the Klingons. It's always the Klingons. And then they introduce a Cybok, an emotional Vulcan. Why can't we have a Romulan bad guy movie? Like what?
Well,
have-
I think the reason for that is that you had
When?
Next Gen coming right up,
When did we have
and
one before
you're
this?
gonna take a lot of those new characters from Next Gen away if you put them in the movie.
I think it's interesting too what you're touching on there, Jody. As I feel like the Klingons were Kirk's bad guys, but the Romulans
Yes.
were Picard's bad guys more.
Exactly.
And
Until the Borg.
until the Borg.
until the Borg,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wait a second. Why can't we have Kirk have a Romulan bad guy? What's
Well,
the
he
difference?
did fight the Romulans. He just in the movies he
Yeah.
does not at all, and in the
That's what I mean.
show
Why can't
there's
we
only
have
two
a Rom-
episodes, right? In the show,
Right.
And
but-
why did this Romulan look like a hooker?
I don't know. And why does she hook up with the human ambassador at the end? I don't know. I don't know why
Only
that was.
Romulan I've ever
It's
seen.
funny
that
you
look
should mention that, Kevin, because there's actually a picture of her on set with Shatner, and she's got her leg up, and he's holding her leg. It's really weird. If I can
okay.
find it, I'm gonna bring it up.
So she may have made an impression at casting, but the director had a.
No,
special
there
part
actually
for her.
is. Like, there's like a behind the scenes picture. They're both in uniform.
Well, I think
And
we have a question.
I gotta see if I can find
It
it.
was successful.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just got to touch upon it. Uhura comes, picks them up at the campsite. What does Kirk say? All I need is a tall ship and a star
Someone
to
to
whatever.
steer
He
it
says
by.
something.
Yeah.
They have a little fight about the
Tall
classics.
ship and a star to steer it by.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Come
And
on.
he
That's a
says
good quote.
Spock says he's versed in the classics, but McCoy asks him why he doesn't know row,
That
row,
was
row your
good.
boat. By the way, I don't think I
Because
hear
it's
anybody
shit.
ever sing row, row, row your boat since the 1980s. But
No.
if
Well,
you-
we're also not
Well-
in kindergarten very often.
Yeah, I'm not in grade 2 anymore. Like it's.
but when your kids were
Oh,
little,
wow.
were they singing row, row, row your boat?
Never.
I remember Grace
Never.
doing it.
Yeah. So
No,
I
I
think
remember Grace doing it.
their prediction that this song would have longevity well into the 23rd century may have been misplaced.
Well, it's also a song though that everybody knows. Like, I think they were looking for familiarity than anything really.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So he gets up to the ship. Kirk is briefed on the hostage situation. It's the actually the admiral that gives him the briefing is Harv Bennett, which was the producer for movie 2 to 6. He was helped write and produce these movies. So apparently he was abused so much by Leonard Nimoy on Star Trek 4. He almost didn't come back to produce this movie, but Shatner talked him into it somehow. I don't know how Leonard Nimoy abused him, but that's interesting.
He was not an easy guy either because he was a huge alcoholic. So
Yeah.
that's what.
If you actually read the Shatner memoir thing where he talks about him, there's the stuff that's questionable that he did. But he still says like he was an amazing guy. Just he was a guy who had a lot of problems and a lot of stress. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that about Leonard Nimoy or about Harv Bennett?
Yeah. The book is actually about Nimoy, and there's a lot of it is written by Shatner. So, but it is authorized by his son. So, and his son does direction for. His son directed a couple. Next Gen episodes was it or Voyager?
Whose son?
Nimoy's.
No, Nimoy's son.
Yeah.
He directed a couple episodes, but anyway.
He married
Not
Jedzia
that big.
Dax. That's his main claim to fame.
Did he do the captains too? Or
Oh, that's a pretty good claim to fame, guys. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
That ain't bad.
ain't bad.
Could have did worse.
Speaking of, before we get back into the story, so we mentioned that they were making this movie at the same time as I think the second season of Next Generation, and there's a story you can listen to from Will Wheaton tells, the guy who played Wesley Crusher, about how he went over there to meet William Shatner. He was 16 and was super eager, and he got over to the set, and William Shatner was like, "Are you that kid from that show?" He's like, "What do you even do over there?" And just looked at his and made Will Wheaton.
I remember that story.
How many kids were on the original series?
What's your point? What does it really
Shatner's
matter?
kid was.
The point was he was not very nice to him, and so apparently the story got back around the Next Gen cast, and Michael Dorn threatened to beat up William Shatner, which I would have loved.
I'd love to
I
see
don't
that.
think Shatner was just being sarcastic. Whatever.
I think William Shatner just has.
Hey, Shatner's known to be a bit of a prick, but
Yeah, he's a prick, but
like,
he's sarcastic too.
I've never seen him be a prick
Also,
to a kid. Like that's
William Shatner is getting better as he gets older, but when he was young, he was a nightmare.
I bet,
everyone he worked with hated him.
yeah.
Mhm.
And apparently a bunch of wives as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The guy's been married 4 times or something.
well, one of them died in the bottom of a pool, but that's
Yeah,
neither here nor there. So
That had nothing to do with him. Might have been Nimoy.
might have been Nimoy.
Just saying, putting that out there.
Yeah, so just this whole sequence, he gets up to the bridge, he gets his briefing. He's wearing jeans on the bridge, which always sticks out to me. It's so weird. And then we get the little message from the hostages, the Galactic Army of Light. And then Cybok kind of comes in, and Spock seems rattled by this and
Space Jehovah's Witnesses.
But still doesn't mention at all that this is his brother. He doesn't mention anything.
No, which makes Spock a total prick through this entire movie, really.
Well, he's negligent, right? That's important information to share with his team.
Nor does he mention he has a sister.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I said that while we were watching it. I'm like, also he has a sister he's never mentioned either, apparently.
right. But do you know what? As I was thinking about this whole okay, Spock's got a brother thing, or half brother at least, and I think it still works better than the introduction of Michael Burnham on Discovery, because I think it's Nimoy. It's still Leonard Nimoy, the original Spock performance. I think he's able to bring more gravitas to that versus okay, here's a new character, and guess what? She's the stepsister of Spock. And then they brought in an actor playing Spock who wasn't Leonard Nimoy. But
by the way, I've stopped watching that again.
I know, but the point,
it's terrible.
Did you see the preview? I'm stopping. But did you see the preview for Discovery? It came out yesterday or the day before.
No, and I'm not going to
Check it out.
probably.
I'm excited.
Who's going to be on this podcast with me for Discovery?
I will.
Only you. Just you
I'm
and me
excited.
talking.
I don't
into
know why I
this.
just saw it and I'm like, oh.
I think Jeff's falling asleep over there. Let's get a move on.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Can't even talk about it. It's so bad. It's just. So
Oh, there's gonna be trills, and it's the. Oh,
No, I think he's talking about this movie.
Oh, this one. Okay.
Again, Kevin's right. We're talking about a TV show that's not even back that we don't like.
instead of this movie.
movie. This movie is not good.
That's a very fair point.
I only touched upon it because it had this common element of Spock introducing like more to Spock's backstory, I guess, after the fact.
All right, let's keep moving. The beer's running out.
Name me a single Klingon that's in this movie other than Krog.
That's not even a Klingon in the movie. It's Cord. There's General Cord,
Whatever.
and there's Captain Claw.
Oh God.
You just weren't paying attention, Jeff. I don't know
Don't
what to
go
tell you.
against the fact checker.
Oh, I paid attention, Dave. I watched the movie twice. It's fucking terrible.
You watched the movie twice in
I
a row?
had to watch. I did it once without notes, and then I did it kind of with notes. But I was just like, "This is so boring."
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
That's why.
What did your notes look like? Just I'm so bored, right? Written over and over.
Terrible. Who's this? Where are we? What's going on? Just ask questions mostly.
Well, the next big thing in the movie is that they go to Nimbus 3 and then they start this like we're going to save the hostages plan. So part of that is they land a shuttle like pretty far away from the city while Chekhov, posing as the captain, calls Cybok to sort of distract him.
Yeah, worst captain impression ever, mind you.
So because they have to land so far away from the city, they can't walk to the city in a short enough time. So they decide to steal some horses from some local guys. And to do this, they use Uhura doing her little dance.
Which is about 20 years too late.
Yeah, it really was.
I think she's
You know what?
sexy in this scene, but
I gotta give her props for even doing it. All right, that was good. You know, obviously, Nichelle Nichols is, obviously a talented lady. But yeah, no, you didn't sell me on that
She
at
had
all.
great legs back in the day, but
Yeah, they weren't up to snuff at that point, and I wouldn't expect it. Like she was at this point, she was in what, her late 50s.
yeah, probably like still good for her age, but not good for
still, like, not even look half the
movie
shit out of it.
scene.
yeah, she's probably in her like late 40s to 50s at that point.
Yeah, like she's not. Well, now let's look at it this way though. These sand people, or whatever you want to call them, maybe that's their cup of tea.
Oh, they're like, woman.
They haven't seen a woman in a while,
Yeah.
so it goes on for a while, right?
Like caveman. I was expecting to drag her by her hair. Whoa, God.
Say if you got it down,
Wow.
you gotta.
You guys like that?
It's
Was that enjoyable?
I don't know what's worse, the movie or what you just did there.
Did anyone else get chills other than Jane? I felt it.
Let's go.
Dave.
Even Jane's like, no, we got to get going here. Let's go.
No, I meant let's go to the other room. That was very sexy, Dave.
Yeah.
How much drugs have you smoked today?
Like, I think largely they just had a lot of this stuff in here because Shatner loves horses. He's the director of the movie, and they were just finding ways to put horses into this movie. So that's, I think, a big reason these scenes exist.
Well, that's what happened in Generations as well.
Yeah,
because both Picard and
but they had a
him
real
both like it.
they had a real writer and a real director writing Generations, Jody. This movie is like they gave the keys to the kid in the candy store, and he was like, "Give me this, give me that. I'll take anything." You know,
I'll put her doing a dance. I'll put horses
You know what,
in
Jeff?
it.
I'm not going to argue with you as this being a bad movie because, in my opinion, it's still a bad movie. It's still not as bad as the first one. I'm sorry.
I don't even care. I would rather watch the first one than watch this movie.
This tries to be
that first one
than
is
it is,
brutal.
but yeah.
I actually, truthfully, I'd rather watch 3 than this one though, and I hate 3.
Oh, I'll watch 3 before I watch this. And I'm not a fan of 3 either. I'm with you on that.
I thought 3 was, and this one, I don't hate this movie as much as I hate 3. It's just so fucking boring. There's nothing that happens the whole movie. Like, it's just, I don't care about any of it.
Center
I
of
don't-
the galaxy.
I don't care enough about it to hate it.
I don't like one. It's an awful movie, but I would rather watch it because this movie is, like you said, nothing happens. At least in one, nothing happens, but you're like,
Nothing happens for an hour in the first movie.
you're so puzzled by as why.
They don't even leave the
Jeff,
fucking
If you can
Stardock
sit
until
through
an
Star Trek
hour
1
in.
with a smile on your face on some kind of live stream, I'll believe what you're saying. But
Yeah,
you're,
that's horseshit.
now Star Trek 1 is in the
I'll
rearview
be
mirror.
with you.
You're not worried about it anymore.
Smile on my
Yeah.
face. I just would rather. I'm more puzzled by that movie and how it got made than this movie. I understand what it is. It's William Shatner having a jerk off fest with a movie that he never should have gotten this movie. You know, like
Well, he got this because
Nimoy did.
Nimoy got the previous one, right?
And the one before that.
but
yeah.
Nimoy knows how to make a movie, like for the most part.
That's debatable.
Like we know that neither of them can sing when they released their "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds" album back in the '60s.
Oh, come on, Shatner's album is a masterpiece.
But what happened is,
I love that.
if you guys want to get through this movie, you gotta let me talk. So,
Well, the problem is we keep talking about stuff that has nothing to do with this movie, which goes back to Jeff's point.
yeah. So they get Kirk storms the castle. He's there to say. Oh, first he gets into a fight with a cat, the three-boobed cat woman, throws her into the. Wow.
I think every sci-fi movie should have a three-boobed woman.
That's what I was like.
Like Total Recall was great.
Total
because of
Recall.
that.
That's what I reminded me. So I guess Total Recall got that from this. I wasn't sure who stole from who.
Total Recall's after this.
Total Recall's after this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Year after, yeah.
Maybe three boob in the makeup scene. That was what they were doing.
Yeah.
We can make three
Maybe
boobs now.
they literally
Everybody's
took the
ordering
three
this.
boobs off and gave it to the next person and recycled it. Who knows?
Maybe.
It was a recycled
maybe
boob.
Same boobs.
Could be.
But of the cat variety. It turns out the hostages have turned. They're now with Cybok, and they get
Well,
the
they
jump
always
on them.
were, I think. But anyway.
Yeah, and then we get to the scene with Spock and Cybok meeting up again. He goes, "Oh, it's you, Spock," and he goes, "What do you got to say to me?" He's like, "You're under arrest for 17 violations of the Neutral Zone Treaty," and they all just laugh.
And we still don't know at this point that he's his brother, right?
No, we don't know that at this point.
They don't tell us that until an hour in.
They don't tell that us until after Spock won't shoot Cybok once they get back into the shuttle.
That's right. Yeah,
which is a few minutes after this. Yeah. So basically their plot is, okay, we're going to take the shuttle up and but the problem is the Klingons are here now and they're going to shoot down the shuttle. So we have to get back into the ship fast enough so they don't shoot us down or something like that. Right. And so they have to fly in.
Be put down for 15 seconds. So they have to find
The shields can only be down for 15 seconds. The Klingons are here. And so Sulu gets to do his big manual landing. Whatever. It's not that exciting really of a scene, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're killing Kevin here.
Still not as bad as the first hour of the first movie.
Right. But then the scene we just brought up where he goes, Kirk goes, "Shoot him!"
Yeah.
"Shoot him!" And Spock won't. And then he goes, "You asked me to kill my brother, Captain." He goes, "Well, I know he's a fellow Vulcan, Spock, but it's he's like, I'm not speaking. He's a son." So now he reveals this information.
Dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And then there's all that. We understand the history that he's a son of Sarek. They were raised as brothers. We kind of touched upon that. But the whole thing is that Cybok is now systematically brainwashing the crew. He starts with Sulu and Uhura, and then he moves on to Chekhov. I don't think, but they're never actually cured, right? Like they just kind of get over it, or their pain is gone, or whatever.
It's like a spell kind of thing.
It's like a spell.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Real quick, just to go back to my point about Star Trek 1.
Who's tapping? Somebody's tapping.
Oh, somebody's tapping. Star Trek 1 on IMDb has a 6.4 rating, and it's a 94% fresh movie for some reason. I have no idea why. And Star Trek 5 is a 5.5 out of 10 on IMDb, and is 43% fresh. So the critics think that 1 is a much better movie than this movie.
The critics, you can't trust the critics.
No. They clearly didn't watch the same movie.
Saying people agree with me. That's all I'm saying.
I can find anybody to agree with anything in this world. That doesn't make it right.
It's a hard choice between 1 and 5.
There's a lot of people that agreed with the Nazi Party too.
I don't know if that's comparable here, but okay.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's an example of poor judgment.
Just saying, there's 54,000 votes on this movie. The average came out at 5.5.
No.
This begins the jailbreak sequence. Spock says that the cell is escape proof because he helped make it escape proof. Until they hear the tapping on the wall, and Scotty's there for the jailbreak. Have you never do it again, Jody?
What
What are we doing?
Have you ever seen a jailbreak before?
Have you never seen a jailbreak?
Come on, don't stand around. Which was fun. And
Terrible.
No,
Anyway.
this
not
is where not fun.
Not fun.
This is where Cybok then says, "This is what my master plan is. Now that I have the ship, I'm going to tell the rest of the Enterprise crew. We're going to Shaka-Ri, which is heaven, Eden, the sort of the fable land, whatever.
It's the final frontier.
The final frontier." And that's where we're going, guys. Spock's like, that's interesting. And Kirk's having none of it. Kirk's like, I don't have any time for conflicted loyalties. You're either with me or you're not. And he's like, well, I'm here in the cell with you. And he's like, yeah, but you're being kind of shifty, so I don't like it. So cut that out, Spock.
Spock is being shifty. He's like, hey, how come you never told us about your brother before? He's like, I wasn't disposed to tell you about my personal matters. It's like, aren't you guys friends? Were you guys just together?
I've been friends for like 30 years at this point.
Did you for Kirk in 2 movies before this? Or
You have always and will always be my friend. He literally says that like 3 movies ago.
Yeah.
I just don't get this Spock. Like, boy, they did this later too with the Michael Burnham. I don't know, he was his sister. What? Like, what is this? Like, I don't know. This
I guess Vulcans are embarrassed of having families.
Perhaps.
We don't have a lot of insight into that. So
I don't know. As a parent, I'm embarrassed about having a family sometimes too.
It just goes back to what you're saying, though, Jody, that it's convenience. Like, Star Trek loves convenience,
Especially the original series stuff.
Yeah, especially the originals.
Yeah.
And the movies in particular, I think.
The movies really accentuate that, yeah.
So after the jailbreak, Scotty bangs his head because he knows the ship like at the back of his hand, apparently.
Stupidest scene in the movie other than singing.
Like the
and then
Stormtrooper
and then we get the whole thing in the turbo lift where they're climbing up the turbo lift, and then Spock shows up with the rocket boots. This drives me nuts because it has no continuity. There is a scene where like they're going up and down. They're climbing up the ladder, yet they were just like the decks are going like up in numbers. So like deck 12 is below deck 13. This is wrong. And then we see them going up and like go really fast, and they pass deck 65 at one point. This ship only has 23 decks, guys. Like this is not.
That was stupid.
Just dumb.
I didn't notice.
Why didn't they catch that?
I think it was more of one of those things like, well, if they are only going at 23 decks and they're ascending that quickly, the scene would have been like 3 seconds. Right, so like they had to kind of stretch it out. What they should have did was like instead of saying deck 57 or whatever, it should have said something like access 57 or something. Then like at least you could say, oh well, it's not each deck, it's an access board or something.
Sure.
How many decks does the Enterprise D have?
36.
Maybe they were sharing
36.
36.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Wait, 42. But engineering is on deck 36. So
You sure about that?
I have to look it up.
Doesn't really matter.
But I have to
doesn't
fact
matter.
check that.
Below 60 something, so
Yeah,
It's less than 60. I can tell you that for an honest
fewer than
fact.
60.
And the turbo shaft that they use actually, I don't even think is part of next gen. It doesn't look the same.
no, it doesn't. But
Yeah.
It's 42 decks.
42?
42 decks.
Dave was
That's the
right. He
answer.
read the wiki.
At one point, I also had the technical manual for a while.
I still have the technical manual, the one with the burgundy cover.
Yeah, the Haynes manual.
Yeah, we've got the technical manual for D.
It's an awesome read, But anyway.
Yeah, the guys who designed this stuff, who designed the ships and like everything that was to do with
whatever.
it, they put real care. They put real detail into
All
it.
right. Anyway, has nothing to do with this.
What happened with your deck problem here of why it's deck 12 and then deck 13? I think they had to go back for reshoots because if you notice in that scene, the lights are different. In the first shot, it's deck 12, and they have like a normal light bulb in the turbo lift, and then they go up to deck 13, and then all of a sudden there's green and blue LED lights going across as well, and the light bulbs are gone. So they probably had to go back for a reshoot on this, and then they couldn't fix the set or something like that happened.
Maybe. After the whole turbo lift sequence, Kirk and Spock and McCoy, they make it to what's kind of like their 10 forward lounge, I guess. It's kind of like, I think it actually is the 10 forward set from Next Gen that they've redressed with some things. So they get the distress call off.
Is that the nautical room?
The nautical room, yeah.
Okay.
So they get the distress call off, but I don't think, what they don't realize is the distress call is intercepted by the Klingons and Captain Claw. And his lady friend there, Lady Klingon. She can impersonate.
Lady Klingon.
She's got muscles.
She's got muscles. But Cybok right after gets the jump on him. He's like, "Hey, did you get any interesting information off there?" And this is where he's going to explain to Kirk and Spock and McCoy what he's all about, what is he doing, and that they're going to join him willingly. And it begins with him
Which is a very
taking
stupid
away
plot point.
their pain. So they explain this, like what he does to people, right? And shows them their pain. So he starts with McCoy, and we learn that McCoy's father, who was David McCoy, we know.
I gotta stop you right there, though. Why can everyone see the hallucination? Why can everyone in the room see it?
Well, I assume that Cybok can project as well.
I can
That's
only
what I-
imagine it's just a product of his telepathy, of what he's.
Yeah, he has the ability to project it into other minds as well, so everybody can see
Doesn't
his
make any
way.
fucking sense. Never seen.
He's a space evangelist. Like, what do you
It
want?
makes more sense than the Dex numbers not making sense with the turbo lift. Like,
No, it
it's,
doesn't.
Well, I don't know about that, but anyway.
like you can project images into somebody's mind through telepathy, in theory.
Well, I guess. All right, move on. Kevin's right though. Like, it's not explained or anything. It's just silly.
No.
Since telepathy doesn't actually exist, it's hard to
Anything.
How do you know?
qualify it.
How
but
do you know, Dave?
I just know.
I'm sending something right now.
Well, we are a bit psychic. We are Pisces, so that's true. I know.
You believe
Ashley,
that shit, but you think that
Ashley felt that too. I think so. She was like, "Oh, the Pisces power."
She
Here we
does.
go.
Well, Ashley probably felt what I felt, which is. Well, I'm not even going to go there. It's-
You're killing me.
But how did you guys feel like when you learned this thing about McCoy? So McCoy's father had a terminal
I
illness.
didn't care.
He was in a lot of pain, but the life support was keeping him alive. But he basically pulled the plug, and then they discovered a cure a short time
Euthanasia.
later. It's euthanasia.
Yeah, how do you feel about it?
Still didn't care.
Well, I think
Didn't
that's
do anything for me.
It's a big topic.
I
That
think DeForest Kelly plays like the moment kind of like it's good and it's bad. It's a little hacky, but like he's a good
Yeah.
actor that you kind of
He
go,
is, yeah.
okay, you kind of believe it, even though it's kind of poor.
That guy has shown more emotion in one scene than fucking most people can do in the entire show. So,
That's right. Yeah.
you
like,
know, he definitely can do that.
he stands out because Spock has no emotion, and
Well, he's supposed to be kind of the
he's supposed to be
the cutter of him, right?
And Kirk is such a he's such a hack of an actor in certain times that you kind of go, okay.
Or through most of this movie, anyway.
When most of this movie. When DeForest Kelly really stands out, you kind of go, wow, you really see how much like the chops that he has.
Two different actors for sure.
Very well, you can see like, and also like James Doohan, like you said, is just like a comic folly for the whole movie. He's just,
Totally wasted in this movie.
right. Uhura's showing her legs off, and like Sulu and Chekhov are getting lost in the forest. I mean, what's going on, guys? I mean, really, in this movie, it's to me, it's just like Shatner wanted a movie.
Starlog.
I think it's a
Nice.
bit about his ego. I find like this movie, like not that he didn't include the other guys, but like I don't know, he didn't know.
Well, Shatner's ego is in every one of the movies. Let's be honest.
Yes, but this is
Like,
like the
This is probably the worst one when it comes to his ego, though.
I think the worst thing about this movie might be the room that they're in. I hate that room. I don't know why.
That nautical room.
Yeah,
That nautical room is terrible.
they spend more.
it's
time on that.
it's fine. What's wrong with the room?
I don't
Even-
know. I can't
Even
even.
the fucking
can't even
plaque that they
describe.
show.
I just hate
Where,
it.
where no man has gone before.
The
That's
plaque
what
even looks like shit.
Why does the nautical room exist? Like, what is the reasoning for it?
I think. It's a room for McCoy, Spock, and Kirk to have meetings.
yeah.
I think that's the only reason it
I
exists.
think it's more like a
It's a little reception lounge. It's
like
it
a little
is-
lounge. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
it's
a
it's
lounge.
it's their version of 10 Forward. I
I
think.
just hate it. I just hate it so much. I don't
Yeah,
know.
like Ken Ford is very sterile. It's a very sterile environment, but at least it's like decent. Like it's not like ugly and fucking nasty looking and dumb shit on the wall and
It's a very dark room. And-
Dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It-
I don't even know where you guys are coming from sometimes. Like,
it almost looks like it's a room that they set up just to do drug
it's some
deals
wet
in.
paddling. Who cares? Like
It's
it's fine.
very non-Star
Like
Trek.
if they're smuggling shit and they're like, making like shady deals, that would be the room they would use.
Yeah.
For sure.
I don't know what this is going on.
Okay.
Okay.
It's an officer's lounge, and it's a terrible one.
I would agree.
One.
It's something like that, and you know,
with a wheel. That's it.
like I didn't know you were an interior decorator. I just didn't know that. So.
Whether I'm an interior decorator or not, I know what fucking ugly looks like. That shit was ugly.
I liked when they were talking about your pain and you need your pain to be who you are. I really like that.
Well, it's not like that was the worst dialogue in the movie.
I'll prove right now, though, that Spock and McCoy are best friends. When they're leaving that room, when Cybok says, "Come with me, Captain, you'll have to stay here," McCoy starts walking away. Spock says no, and then McCoy goes, "Oh, I guess I'll stay then." He wasn't going to stay with Kirk. He was going to stay with Spock, though.
Right. So, so we learn about McCoy's pain. We learn about Spock's pain. His father said, so human, and that's his pain. And then Kirk says, I need my pain. I'm not doing any of this. Like it makes me part of who I am. And you're kind of like, yeah, Kirk, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That was great.
And so apparently there was, originally Spock and McCoy were supposed to go with Cybok after this. And apparently Leonard Nimoy and DeForest Kelley objected. They got Gene Roddenberry on side to say like Spock and McCoy would never betray Kirk like this. Would never walk away from Kirk like this.
This is the fundamental problem with this movie is that somebody wrote a story and then the actors came in the middle and went,
Changed it.
No, that can't be because that would never happen. Okay.
But don't you agree with them?
It's not about whether I agree with them or not. It's whether or not the writer wrote a story.
It's the integrity of the story.
Yeah, the integrity of the story. And then it's like this is just like any movie that gets produced and then like gets rewritten. And it, like, you know what it reminds me of? The Fantastic Four, the new one, that remake one that they did with.
Never saw it.
You never saw? Okay, well, it's basically shot in two different ways. Like they basically shot it and then had to go back for reshoots. And then literally halfway through the movie, like the Invisible Girl's hair completely changes and her makeup is completely different. And everything, like you can tell, it was two movies.
Is this the one where Kate Mara's in it?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a different example, but it's studio interference in a movie compared to like actors who have been playing a role for 20 years, speaking to sort of
what
I
think their input should definitely be in
their
there.
character.
Yeah, sure.
Their character is like a character. Like if the guy coming in to play Reed Richards, he has no authority to say what Reed Richards would or wouldn't do. But I think that DeForest Kelley has a bit more context about what.
But when you're building the story, that's when you do that. You don't do that when you've already got the story. You already have everything laid out for the movie. Like I'm sure this movie was entirely storyboarded at this point. Like it's like to go and just change all of that does actually create some integrity issues with the actual movie.
I agree with the choice. I think that the mistake was.
I'm not saying it was a bad choice. I'm just saying that.
Apparently,
to Jeff's point,
Sulu,
though, it can fuck up a movie really easily.
In this movie, we see Sulu, Chekhov, and Uhura are all brainwashed by Cybok, and they all basically neglect their duties. They turn on their captain, their friends, to help him get through this barrier that happens. Right,
Uhura would do that, but McCoy and Spock would not.
Yes, that's what this movie. I don't know. That's what this. That's what happened in the movie.
But they're being brainwashed. What's to say
but
that?
So were Spock and McCoy, and they were fine.
Right.
So, stronger.
I disagree with you, Dave. I think they should not have been fine, and that Kirk should have had to fight this alone, and it would have been way more interesting. Had
that would have definitely made a different point of view for sure. Yeah.
But the only reason Kirk just refused. So this is not something Cybok could force upon you, I guess.
Right. So and I think that would have been way more interesting in this moment had Kirk had to go it alone without.
But even if you take Sulu into effect here, Sulu is somebody who has always stood by everybody. So you're telling me that like Sulu is just a weaker mind, and that's the reason why that happened? Like, I'm with Jeff on this one. No, it doesn't make sense.
Well,
I'm with Jeff.
That's what happened in the movie.
Well, I know that, but what I'm saying is,
actors rewrote the story, and that should not have happened. The writer.
You're saying that the brainwashing should have been more absolute, that it should have been more effective.
But it turns out that the whole thing with them breaking out and him doing this mind shit on them didn't make any difference at all to the movie whatsoever. Because they never tried to regain control of the ship. He succeeded, and then he just said, "Okay, it's yours now."
I think they had a movie completely different ending from this moment on. They had a different movie written, and then
it almost feels like it just like the third act just went to shit.
Well, I think that they still would have ended up where they ended up. It's just whether or not Spock and McCoy were standing side by side with Cybok for it, I think was the question. And obviously they weren't. But that's where they get through it. They go, Sulu missed right through the barrier. This thing that no crew's ever returned from. No man has ever been able to get through. This is like a suicide mission. They're basically flying into the sun.
That's why Sulu gets the Intrepid later, right?
Excelsior, but
Or
not
Excelsior.
for. Yeah, he does.
And where
It's
is
because
this
he's
barrier?
boss, man.
Where is this? Where did we go?
The center of the galaxy.
So when we're looking at like the alpha quadrant, beta, like where is it?
So okay, you got your
The
galaxy.
4 quadrants. Is it in the center of that?
in the
Is that where we
center.
went?
Yes.
It's in the center of the
Okay.
4 quadrants. Yeah.
So Earth is about here,
Okay, that's what I thought. But
and so they flew to like this.
okay.
Basically, half
That's what I
half
thought.
the time it takes to go from the Alpha Quadrant to the Delta Quadrant, and that's the center of the universe.
It's the center of the galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Center
All
of
right.
the universe or galaxy. Yeah.
Galaxy.
Uh,
Galaxy. We're still in the Milky Way galaxy.
What does God need with a starship?
Wait, don't galaxies have suns at the center of them?
I think they have black holes.
They don't all have to. No.
Really dense matter. I thought like
It's basically a black hole at the center of the galaxy,
Oh,
and everything
Yeah.
orbits around that in our
Spiral
galaxy.
galaxy.
Like our star, our sun, orbits.
Right. So the
Also orbits
center-
around it.
there at the center of the galaxy, there wouldn't be a planet with a barrier. It would be a black hole.
Yeah, if they had
Yeah.
explained that better.
It's a black hole, and I don't know a ton about it. I'm not an astrophysicist.
Kind of like
but,
if they had done, you know.
I think you're right, actually, Dave.
Where is Neil deGrasse Tyson? That's what we need.
Have you seen the movie Interstellar? Have you seen
Yeah.
it?
Unfortunately,
yes.
Okay, so that movie's about going into a black
Yeah.
hole, okay, and then, in Interstellar, it's like basically like a wormhole,
Yeah.
which you know they deal with later in Star Trek. But if they had made this great barrier just a black hole, it would have been a little bit more interesting. You know, and then to come back from the black hole.
yeah, you almost get an idea that it's just like almost like the Nexus. It's like a ribbon, and then once they pass it, they kind of are somewhere, right? They don't really tell
the
you.
Great Barrier is pretty easy to get through.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
only for Sulu.
Yeah, but I think that once they get through, they're like, "Well, we're here. We're explorers. Let's explore." And I was like, "Okay, I'm on
That
board
was
with
the
that."
one thing that I liked about this scene is Cybok giving him back control and being like, I know that we're gonna go to the planet. Like your curiosity is gonna get the best of you and we're gonna do this.
Well,
Well,
maybe
you're-
some would say
first
that
person.
Kirk was actually a little bit brainwashed to begin with.
First humans, at least, to be here. So why not, right? And they get to this planet, like it's a planet with rocks and dirt.
It appears to be a planet. Yeah.
It appears to be, at least. They're walking around, and I guess after they get tired of walking around, this is part of the problem. I'm like,
Why'd they walk so much?
why'd they have to walk so much?
We're talking to God.
But as they're kind of the rest of the crew is watching them on the view screen, but they don't notice that the Klingons have shown up and they're here to. So I guess they got through the barrier. So maybe it's not that hard to get through the barrier.
So whenever you land a shuttle on a planet or whatever mass it is that you land, do you automatically put out like a video camera with a tripod
I
that
guess
just
so.
points in the direction that you're going to go, so that way everybody can watch you?
I'd imagine they have some kind of
Drone.
video
Drones.
drones.
Yeah.
That's silly. But anyway,
Right. So eventually,
I understand radio communication, but the video just made no sense to me.
Cybok gets tired. By the way, Cybok, the actor, Jane read in her little magazine there that Cybok, they wouldn't give him underwear initially. The actor who played him, and he had to demand underwear.
He's like, no, I'm not wearing a white see-through-ish robe naked underneath.
yeah.
Why wouldn't they give him underwear? That's a weird thing to deny.
So they got him underwear and tights.
Also, he couldn't bring his own underwear.
Shatner is probably like, his bulge better not be as good as mine. Let him hang!
They wouldn't give him underwear. Bring your own. Go down to the freaking Walmart at the time and buy a pair of Hanes. Like, get it over with.
Didn't he come to work in underwear?
I guess when you're an actor, they give you whatever you have to wear, right?
You show
So
up naked to the place every day, or
I don't know, Jay or
Well, you
Jeff.
show up with what your stuff's on, but you have a costume to wear.
Is that how it works? Like, if you're like an actor in any movie, say you're playing Tony Stark, do they give you underwear to play Tony Stark? Like they go here.
I don't know.
This is what Tony Stark wears.
I've never been Tony Stark. I don't know.
I know. I'm just interested now.
I think that they
I
might.
think we need to look into this.
Yeah, his exact quote is, "So somebody went out and got me some underwear and tights." So, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
There you go.
I just didn't, how to.
I'm glad his package was preserved. Let's move on.
All right. Well, I mean, yeah.
Okay, so God shows
We're all
up.
just
God
itching to
welcomes
keep going
them
here.
and says, "Can I?" Oh, here we'll play this little clip here quickly. Here we go.
Oh, I like these multimedia portions of this podcast. You do actually have the clip, right?
Why?
You can hear it.
No.
Why is Kirk not wearing his uniform? Like, why is he wearing just like a brown sweater throughout this whole movie for the most part? Is there any reason?
He's old.
Okay. All right.
He's old. He's like, fuck it. I'm gonna go sit on my
Captain,
recliner.
he does what he wants.
Spock, I was watching All in the Family.
I think.
Let me be.
What does God need
I
with a
think it's a
starship?
Here's
What does
my-
God
I think he just wanted to
need
be comfortable
with a starship?
with direction.
Right. So as they're talking to this god-like figure, they realize, what's come. He says, "How did you get here?" And we came in a starship. He's like, "I need the starship." And then Kirk says, "Well, what does a god need with a starship?" And
Now,
he goes,
hold on this scene though. The thing that I thought was really interesting about this scene is you have McCoy and Nimoy, who both kind of they're on the fence, but you can kind of tell like they're not totally against this guy just yet.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but Kirk automatically is at the wait a second, you're a douchebag. Let me call you on this, right?
Yeah.
But the two of them are just kind of standing there, and Kirk's the only one that's actually using his fucking noggin at this point, and Kirk's just like, wait, hold on. And he literally does the finger. He's like, hold on. I just thought that was amazing. That was a good part. I liked it.
Yeah. I thought it's a very, like, if you're an atheist,
What's
I think
that, Jeff?
I said good's a strong word.
It was a good scene. I
Very
liked it.
memorable.
I think if you're an atheist, I think that this movie would resonate with you. Like this,
Well,
whole,
I am
this,
an
this
atheist,
scene in
but-
particular.
I'm an atheist.
Hmm?
I think we have some atheists.
We may have some
I
here.
am.
So I was like, okay, like, whatever. But I think if you're not, that this would be very, maybe not.
Well, and you got to remember from this aspect, that's a pretty touchy subject to be jumping onto either, because if this movie is going to disprove God, that's, you're going to get into like some Kevin Smith shit here, right? Like it's, there's going to be some problems, right? So I think in a way they kind of had to dance around that a little bit as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that they were right. Like, why bring this into a Star Trek V? Like, why make this the story? I guess maybe Shatner was thinking from a perspective of, that's the final frontier. That's where no man has gone before. That's the great mystery of life. So that's where.
But if somebody came
It's
to you,
because the idea of finding God is grandiose, and if fucking Shatner is anything, it's grandiose. Like,
but let's be honest. If all of you guys have never seen this movie didn't exist, and somebody came to you and pitched this movie, but they didn't get into too many specifics. They just said Kirk and the crew are going to try to find God. Okay, what is your first reaction on that?
yeah, that could be a good
But
movie.
to me, that's not actually a bad movie. It's not a bad premise for a movie.
The premise by itself is fine.
Certainly
I
what we
would
got
say-
wasn't very good, but it's not a bad premise.
I would say there's
Or
not
like-
a lot of God in Star Trek generally, except for this
No.
movie. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
definitely
there's
don't.
the occasional thing, but
Well, there
for the most part not.
gods,
There's always people posing as gods.
gods. Yeah.
movie that came out this year that it's about finding God, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It's
That was
very-
the same year as this.
I think so. Yes, 1980.
What was it?
And if
Far
you-
better movie.
far
Oh,
better
yeah.
movie, and
100 times better.
that's the same premise, but just is was well written and was probably not like Harrison Ford probably wasn't saying what Indy could or would or wouldn't do. I just think the by this point the crew probably had too much influence on the movie.
I wouldn't disagree.
And I think like it just shows that through this whole movie. I'm guessing in 6 when they go back to do 6. I'm guessing whoever wrote that movie had less influence from.
Well, everybody in 6, if you just compare 6 quickly here, everybody in 6 acts the way you would expect them to,
Yeah.
which in this movie isn't the case, right?
Yes.
Like, you would expect Shatner to just say, "Fuck you! You just tried to ship, you fucking asshole! No, we're not fucking going anywhere. Fuck off!"
Right.
That's what you would expect Kirk to do, but instead, Kirk's like,
Okay. Let's
"All right, might as well.
Yeah.
Might as well. I got 20 minutes more. I got to fill in this movie. Might as well."
You would also expect Spock to give any information that would be pertinent
Exactly.
to the there, and he doesn't.
He should have just been like, "Oh, I know him. He's my half brother." Like that's all he had to say. And then like literally, it's not like this is
Should have been like, "Oh,
like
that's my
him being related to Spock for me really didn't do fucking much for me. Like it's not like it matters really. So
Right.
No,
in
they
the
could
grand
have
scheme
done
of
without that entirely.
Anytime Spock
Yeah.
is related to anybody, it seems to not go well.
It can be just shoved aside. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Just
Michael
the
Byrne
worst
would be
thing is when they related him to Winona Ryder.
to the show at all.
Just make him a
Whatever.
regular Vulcan.
Well, they could have made them best friends from when they were kids. That would have been equally satisfying, right?
Or
Like,
they
would have been the
not
same
know
thing.
each other at all.
Or not know each other at all. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that they had a
And then you could
relationship.
have played,
but
but then you could have played Nimoy as somebody who was kind of almost empathetic towards this situation, and that therefore that's why the control happened, right?
right, but when
So there's a lot of ways they could have went on that.
when they say their final goodbye, because Cybok says, "Hey, let me help you with your pain, God," and then I don't know what exactly he does to him.
He kind of goes into him.
Gets himself
Yeah.
killed, I guess. But he goes like
With the entity.
he does the Vulcan salute with do it with me, right? And with other hand, right? So they go like this, and then
They
thumbs
just match up the four fingers. Yeah,
yeah
they match up the top.
the top,
Yeah.
but not the thumbs are sticking out.
Yeah,
What's that about? That's new.
So it's
when
symmetrical.
you shake hands, are your thumbs on both the same side?
Vulcans don't shake hands.
That's their version of shaking hands. Fuck off.
It's
I've
symmetrical.
never seen them do that. They usually hold it up. They don't touch.
It's not always symmetrical.
No, if
When you shake somebody's hand, it's not symmetrical.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Of course,
You're
it's not.
both using the same hand.
You're not listening. It's not shaking hands.
It's the
Well,
same
what's
thing.
Question is why I think they do it.
You do a high five. You don't always do it with the same hand. It's not always matching.
You're right, because I'm left-handed, so I probably don't match a lot of people because they would
No,
throw up their
But you
right
still
hand.
get high fives, don't you, Jane?
Yeah, I would high five.
I would hope you get
Not
high five. If
not
I'll
in
give
this
you a high
day and
five.
age. I will
Next time
never
I
do
see you.
another. Never
still
again in
gonna
my
give
life.
you
If
a high
Cybok
five.
is about to die,
COVID.
so Cybok knows he's about to die,
Another
right?
human being again.
This hand right here, Jane. I'm
All
giving you a
right.
high five.
When
I see ya.
COVID's over, yeah.
I'll sanitize first though, just to be safe.
That's probably
All
the
right.
most prophetic thing ever said on this podcast. I will never high five again. We don't need to. The high five was the most overrated, unnecessary thing. Nobody needs to high five.
I'm a firm believer in the high five.
And down
Moving on.
low, down
Oh,
low.
man, it always seems awkward.
Sad.
High five.
That's what makes it awesome. Is you get somebody awkward. It's amazing.
High fives are better than this movie, though.
Oh,
This is true.
Yes. So Kirk gets
God, this movie is terrible. But
We're
it's not
almost
as bad
done.
as one. Anyway, let's go.
Are you
Finish this
sure?
up. It's almost done. Yeah, it's almost done.
I mean,
I'm waiting for all you to stop talking so I can just finish the movie.
Okay.
Dad mode enabled there. All right.
We're
We're having fun.
bad.
We didn't
The
watch
movie's
this
bad, and I have to make a comment about the last thing Dave just said. I'm like, no, let me just move on.
All right.
see, Dave, you want to get through it just as much as anybody.
Yeah.
It just
I
goes-
do, but you won't let me.
All right. All right. Okay. Our wrists have been slapped sufficiently.
Sorry, Dave.
I'm not. I think it's hilarious.
Because I'm not sorry whatsoever.
Sorry, Dave.
And then you guys are like, are we moving on or not? I'm like, are we? Are we?
What's there to move on to, Dave? That's the real point.
Well, there's only a little bit left.
It only took 5 movies for Dave to have a fucking enough of us.
We haven't even got to the good one yet.
Yeah, we'll do the next one. Okay, so the final thing: Kirk gets himself stranded on the planet. He's fighting God, shooting lasers from his eyes. The Klingons show up. He goes, "You Klingon bastards, come and take me! You want me?" And he gets beamed up, and he thinks he's dead. But guess what? He's not. He's been saved by the Klingons, and it's Spock's in there. And I have the clip here. I wish I could show you. We can see it, which is nice. Spock.
We can act it out.
I think you should act it out.
Welcome aboard.
Okay. In this, when he's on the planet with the bird of prey over top of him, this is another instance of Spock fucking with him. Why would he point the gun at him?
Yeah.
Why? He does. He shoots God, and then he points the gun at Kirk, and then Kirk is that's Spock again fucking with him, being like, "Oh, I'm gonna shoot you."
I never thought of that before.
Yeah,
it's true. But he says, "I thought I was going to die."
Thought I was going to die. Not possible.
Not possible.
You were never alone.
You were never alone.
Yeah, he thought he was going to die because Spock made him think he was going to die.
Because Spock pointed a big Klingon disruptor at him.
Yeah.
And that's not very logical, Spock.
Right.
To believe that he will die only when he's alone, because no one knows that.
Mm-hmm. But that's emotional. That's not logical. You're right. That's human.
Spock is emotional.
He goes to hug him, and then he says, "Not in front of the Klingons." So he's a little bit. He's not totally comfortable with his sexuality. I think.
Intimacy.
With intimacy, yeah, especially in front of Klingons.
I think
macho guys.
Get off me, Kirk. Don't touch me. I don't think he really likes Kirk all that much.
Yes. Who's that? Oh wait,
that?
Hold on, Jody. At least we can
Dad.
See. There we go.
Oh, cool.
Cool.
Okay, so that is literally the end of the movie. It ends in this reception in the room you guys all hate, the nautical room. So with the and the Romulan is hooked up with David Warner now. I don't know why that happened, but it does. So
It's over.
And they go, well, we're left thinking, is God real? Kirk says, maybe God's living in the human heart. That's where the real God is.
I think I blocked
Maybe God's not out there. Maybe he's
No,
in
they're
here.
there.
What do you think about the Klingon guy, giving Kirk one of these, and then Kirk kind of just goes, all right.
Well, the part that I struggle with the most with this ending is the fact that like Spock's left at the end here saying, like, I'm thinking about my brother Cybok. I lost my brother, right? And Kirk says, I lost a brother once. And they kind of look around, but he says, I got him back. Okay. Kirk, James T. Kirk, had a real biological brother who was killed in the original series, George. He didn't come back.
Like flying pancakes or something like that.
Yes.
The flying jelly cake pancakes got his brother, which I get that he's saying that about Spock at the end, but I felt like that was kind of disrespectful to his real brother.
Maybe
it really was.
Maybe not. I don't know. We don't know a lot about the relationship.
Maybe his real brother also thought he was a dick.
Maybe
he says that, I think, because like I lost a brother once, and then you think like probably what you're thinking, Dave. Oh, he's talking about his brother from the original series, and then he goes, "I got him back." So it really meant Spock. So it was supposed to be an endearing moment that like his real brother, or how he looked at. He says, "I lost a brother once." He doesn't say my only brother. He says, "I lost a brother."
That's true. Good point.
True. I get. Yeah, I don't know. It just made me think of George Kirk in that moment.
I think it's supposed to make Spock and McCoy think of that person too, and then and then he flips it back around to the Search for Spock movie. So that's what he's referencing.
Right. And then they end up on the planet, all singing "Row, row, row your boat" together. And this time, Spock brought his loot. So there's Liar, whatever it's called.
Lie.
And that's the movie. Okay, I'm done. Now you guys can talk all you want. So it's
thanks, Dad.
I was just like, let me get through
Podcast is done now.
the plot of this movie, please, and I will move on.
You could have done that in about 1 minute, Dave. I mean, like seriously, like there's not much to talk about.
Yeah, I thought the idea was you recap a little bit and then we talk about it. I guess.
Well,
I guess you're wrong on that.
You're right. You're right. I think I just wanted to get through it. So
Can we talk about the very last scene when they're having the row your boat? Not that.
No, we've already talked about it. We
not
can't
the
talk about
music
it
so
again.
much, but I do think the artwork, how it pans away from them at the campfire, and then it pans up towards they got these trees. It's obviously like a painting or something. But I do think it's really like Dave asked me what my favorite part of the movie was. It's this part right here, right when they pan away from the campfire. And it's very like it pans up right towards space. It all kind of makes sense. Like for me, like it was. I get why they thought this was going to be the end, because like that's kind of how you would send them off. They send them off way better in 6, which we'll talk about with the signatures.
well, I think if this had been the end,
The signature thing is awesome in 6. I like it.
Yeah.
if this had turned out to be the last Star Trek movie with Kirk, and the crew, it would have been completely unsatisfying. Not just because it's not a
for
great
sure.
movie.
Yeah, it would be like Indiana Jones 4.
But I think this sucking is the reason why we got 6. They had to do another one.
Right.
They couldn't end it like this.
6 was the only one I saw in the theater, like so because it was 2 years later.
saw it
I
in
was,
the theater as
I was
well,
just barely old enough to watch that one, and so
I saw this one in the theater.
Did you? I never saw this one in the
did you
theater.
feel better about it then than you do now?
Probably I was really young.
Yeah.
I saw 6 in the theater. That was a big one for me. And then I remember I don't know if you guys remember TMN, the movie channel or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way back when they had a free weekend, so I got my VCR ready, and this was one of the movies that 6 was one of the movies that they did through the free weekend. So I taped it, and I just watched like the VHS tape of it like over and over again. But anyway, we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
week.
well, no, hey, I like we made it. Like, we've always talked about the odd movies being the not so good ones, and I think that the good news is that we don't have to watch a bad Star Trek movie for at least 3 weeks. So that's nice.
Well, Generations is questionable, but anyway,
Generations is questionable. I'm favorable on Generations.
I like Insurrection too, so
I love Generations. I think it's.
I don't like Insurrection. I watched Nemesis recently, and I'm like, this is not as bad as Insurrection. Insurrection is fucking
Not
terrible.
Do not, Jody.
Like, talk about a movie that just sucks. But anyway,
I agree. Insurrection isn't very good. Generations is fantastic. I think it's.
I would watch Generations over any of the other
Would you watch-
ones other than
I
First
just love
Contact.
First Contact.
I think
First
First
Contact
Contact,
is
I can't.
Contact is better than Generations, but I think that Generations is good.
First Contact is definitely best out of those movies.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. 100%.
I know it does remind me a lot of Nemesis and how poorly it was written, and just sloppy and amateur.
Yeah.
Movies are. Like there's something just like
Nemesis definitely had more action in it though than this fucking movie did.
Even the special effects in this movie went backwards.
Yeah.
Like, when they're shooting on the Enterprise and he's got to go to warp, like that is the worst scene I've ever seen.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the good effects didn't actually start until 4. So
At 5,
4 had great special effects in my opinion for the time.
It did. When
And
they
then-
popped out that satellite, it was awful special effects.
Oh, yeah.
Shot that.
Well, just everything with the animations with the Klingon ship don't look good. Apparently, ILM was not used as much in its shows. Yeah, there's just some really bad. Like,
Actually, I watched Undiscovered Country the other day, and I was looking at it from like the effects viewpoint. The effects are pretty solid in that movie, with the exception of the Klingon blood.
yeah.
The Klingon blood is
This
brutal.
movie though looks. I was half waiting for a star wipe to go across the screen. Like the effects were so bad.
there is
Yeah.
very little shots of the Enterprise in space in this movie. Very, very.
Yeah. Very little. Yeah.
Very few. Yeah, most of the movie takes place in that horrible room.
Yes. That's why I think we don't like the room, Dave, is that they're not showing us any of the Enterprise ever. And it's like
The Enterprise should always be a character,
And
and it wasn't a
the
character.
nerve center of that character is the fucking bridge. It's the
Yeah.
bridge. Have it happen on the bridge.
yeah,
Or
and this
at
bridge
the very
doesn't
least
look like it does in the next movie either, right? Like by the next movie, the Enterprise it's the same ship, but it will look different in the next movie quite a bit.
Mhm.
Scotty was doing some work.
But like we said, this is 6 years before Undiscovered Country. So there's 6 years in these characters' histories that we just kind of skip over. Sulu gets promoted and he moves on, and a lot of them are.
In Undiscovered Country, they talk about how they've had the ship out for a long time and it's going to be decommissioned, right?
Right.
Like that's the whole point.
Even at that point, they're like, it seems like a few of them have are semi-retired or moving on, sort of like Uhura talks about teaching at the academy, and
they're done.
Scotty buys a boat, so it's clear that they're sort of heading towards retirement by the time they get to Star Trek 6, and this was their last moment of being like sort of in their prime. What did they do with it? Not much. I think we can safely say that this is on the lower tier of the Star Trek films, but.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Do I hate that it exists? Not at all. Like it's just an adventure that didn't end. So
I could live without it.
I still hate what they did to Scotty. That's it for me. I hate Scotty in this movie.
Yeah, Scotty's bad.
He adds nothing, and he's Jar Jar Binks. I expected him to get his tongue stuck in something at one point. It's awful. He has no substance in this movie.
I could have went right from 4 to 6, and you never would have missed this movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
100%.
Like,
it didn't add anything.
yeah, if you erased this movie, it wouldn't matter.
The only thing you learned in this movie is that there's a half brother, and McCoy's dad.
And William Shatner should never write anything.
But nothing that happens in this movie has ramifications for any of the other movies.
No ramifications.
There's no lasting effects.
By the time we get to Discovery, there is no half brother anymore. At least they don't discuss Cyborg.
Like when we see Michael
Discovery.
Burnham's flashbacks, we never see him.
Why are we talking about that show?
Because it's
It's
part of Star Trek.
It's coming back into my mind.
Whether
We're
we
not
like
going
it
to
or
talk
not,
about Enterprise.
and we
We're not
all
gonna talk about
don't
Discovery.
like it. It is part of Star Trek. So
No.
it's part of the Alex.
So is Enterprise.
version.
No.
I consider
Enterprise.
I take it all, good and bad. I don't
Enterprise
care.
is canon.
in my mind, Discovery is part of the Mirror Universe Star Trek movies.
See, that's how I feel.
And
about it,
even like Mirror Universe has always been awesome, and fucking Discovery fucks that up. Like,
Oh, really?
how?
They did
Not
it
that far.
2 episodes. They really made
So-
it interesting. And then
Deep
they
So,
Space
Kevin, I don't know if I told you
Good job,
this.
Mirror Universe, but fucking Discovery just shits the bed entirely.
So, Kevin, I decided I was going to try to watch it again. Okay, so I skipped the first 2 episodes because I knew they were all Klingon and bullshit anyway. So I went right to 3. I watched 3 up until about 7. And then I'm like, nope, can't do it. I'm done.
because those
Forget it.
I made it to like 3 episodes into the second season, and I was like,
Never
no.
even got to the second season.
Yeah,
I'm like,
but-
I have no desire.
Do you guys not agree that in Discovery, when they first go into the Mirror Universe and they have to find Lorca and like all this stuff that's going on, is actually pretty good.
It was good.
And
It
then
has moments, but it's not enough.
the problem is they went at a certain point in the writers' room. They said, let's end this. And that's what happened. Like, is a lot of times it has to do with writing, and it's just let storytellers tell their story. And if they let them finish the Mirror Universe story in a couple seasons, which is what I think it would have taken to do, right? But they didn't do that. They were like, no, we have to kill Lorca in this next episode. Get it done. That's what.
Look at that face. Look at that face right there.
Why? What?
He's just like, I'm so disappointed. We're supposed to be talking about this movie.
No, I'm hearing you out. I'm just listening to your Discovery talk. I don't like it either, guys. It exists, so I have to.
I just don't like it.
So it's.
I
what
love
it
Dave.
is.
Dave, you're the band.
All right. Well, I think.
I think we can breathe a sigh of relief now that we don't have to watch any more shitty original movies now.
Yeah, we're done. So we're moving on to the best one next. Let's see if it holds up.
We're going to eventually get to the shitty next-gen movies.
We've been hyping it up for the last 5 podcasts on the movie side. So let's.
I can't wait. Discovered Country is amazing. It
Any
is a masterpiece.
any final thoughts as on Star Trek V: The Final Frontier?
I'm glad it's done.
No.
It's the worst
No.
movie to get through.
Garbage.
It's not the worst movie to get through.
It's not
One-
even,
One wins
not
that.
even good enough to be angry at it. It just is awful.
I'm not angry at it. I'm not angry at the first one either.
So boring.
But the first one is definitely more boring than this movie.
I'm disappointed. It's like a child that you thought could have did better.
See, I would throw this one off. If I was like cleaning, vacuuming, whatever, I would throw this one on before I would the first one, for sure. Just
Oh, for sure.
the occasional laugh. I look over the screen. Blah, blah, blah.
There is some decent scenes in
No.
this movie.
If you're gonna watch this movie, you need something else to do for
Yeah,
the boring scenes, so you
Yes.
can watch the scenes that you like. But you can't just sit down and only watch the.
Somebody needs to release a 20-minute cut of this movie because it would
I
probably be
Cut. Release the Shatner cut.
Shatner cut.
We got it. It's this movie that we watched.
But between this one and the first one, I'll watch this one any day over the first one again.
Yeah.
I'll never watch the first one again. I don't think. I had to
like
watch it for this, and I was done.
Yeah. I'd watch 3 again, but I wouldn't watch this anytime soon.
I'll watch 3 over 5 and 1 any day. And I don't even like 3.
God, it's rough for me. Those
Movie.
I really just like the even number ones.
Give it a
Well,
week.
and I don't disagree. They're definitely
Let's give it a week. We'll watch Star Trek 6, which we all like,
And we'll
and
realize that it
we're going
is
to
the
see
best
how we
movie.
feel about these like 3 odd movies. I think, and how we sort of rank them, and even in the even movies, the better ones that we all like.
All I know is while I watched this movie, I kept thinking about 6. 6 is coming after this movie. It'll be fine. We'll be good.
Yeah, it's nice that you have like that dessert to look forward to.
That's right.
After you
This is if we had to talk about dinner, this
Yeah.
would be like peas.
I'd watch.
Oh,
Like, they're
I was going to say
decent.
Brussels sprouts
Oh,
or
Brussels sprouts are great. But peas, this would be like the peas before you get to like the apple pie.
This whole movie, I was watching it just this movie because I was going to do this podcast, and all I kept thinking is, I wish I had something else to do.
That's why I think it's worse. At least with 1, it captivates you because you're like, how did this movie get made? Why are
There
they?
is no
Why are
captivation.
they wearing white jumpsuits? It doesn't make any goddamn sense.
I actually felt this.
No, you're
way.
confused.
I
That's
felt
not the same
way
thing.
about 1 because I watched it twice. I watched it at work on my phone while I was working, so I had something else to do. And I thought, this movie's not that bad. And then I came home, and Ashley was like, I want to watch these movies with you. I'm like, all right, well, we'll watch it again. And then I was watching it and just watching it, and I was like, oh, no, this is
Never-
not good at all.
I never knew Ashley was such a sadist.
when you actually have to sit through it and watch it.
I would
not
rather
good.
It's different.
be confused and
Oh, it's a crappy movie.
Oh, it's horrible. I'm thinking, oh, it's so
Not as
long.
bad as 1
long
though. I
shots. Oh,
stand by that.
It takes a long
1
time
is
to
so
get.
garbage.
That's the problem with 1. It's
yeah, I can't do that again.
1 is just a draggy mess. Terrible written. Oh, it's just garbage. The whole thing's garbage.
They're both garbage. Both 1.
Oh, they're both garbage. Don't get me wrong. This one had less garbage in it though.
There you go.
This was almost like the recycle bin of Star Trek.
And on that note, I think that's where we can leave Star Trek 5 in the recycle bin. Okay. All right. I want to thank all of our guests, our panel here today. Jane, of course. We got Kevin, Jeff, Jody, Ashley in the background. I want to thank everybody for taking part, watching this terrible recycle bin worthy movie, and we'll all get ready for the next one. So thanks, everyone. Make sure to subscribe to our Facebook page, our YouTube channels, our audio feeds. We got all that stuff. Use that. We're doing Deep Space Nine rewatch podcasts on Tuesdays. So check that out. We have our original series rewatch episodes with my dad, Jeff and I's dad, Ted. Jody's also a panelist for that.
Ted Bader.
Yeah, Super Ted Mater was part of that. So check that out on Fridays. And then we got Super Mater Brothers podcast in another channel you can check out. That's got TV movies, not Star Trek related. You can check out that. So Westworld Season 3. We're about to do our final podcast for that. And then Survivor Season 40, Winners at War, which is also wrapping up in a week and a half. So we're going to need some new shows, Jeff. There's other stuff over there.
Discovery.
Blah.
And for those who, we also, have Trivial Debates back in the fold. We did our first one back on Trivial Debates. That's like a debate show with movies, TV, music, sports, a whole bunch of different categories. There's a little bit of something for everybody over there. Jody's going to be hosting the next one. We're going to be doing those on a monthly basis. So check that out at facebook.com.
What are we doing the next one anyway?
Well, I guess a month from the time we did the last one, which was Sunday. So we'll have to count ahead 4 weeks and get that.
I guess I better get some questions ready.
Yeah, you got some time to prep.
The answer to that was 4 weeks.
Every 4 weeks.
4 lights.
So monthly.
3 weeks.
Monthly.
There
3
are
weeks. It was a week.
4 weeks.
So that would put us
That's my card.
around May 17th, I guess, is when we'll do that. And I think
I've
that's
had
it.
a lot of beer.
All right.
It's
So
only 3:30.
I'm not going to get you to introduce yourself or say goodbye.
Oh, good.
It's all good. So I'm going to say I'm Dave Mater and good night. Goodbye.
Oh, I see.
Live
So
long
now he's
and
shunning us.
prosper.
Well, because when I try to get you to say, "Oh, I'm Jody,"
Oh, I see
Yep.
how it is, Dad. That's fine. I get it.
Bye. Goodbye.
Bye.